I had this great comment this week about the dream status reports, this journaling sheet that we do on Fridays to check in with our dreams. And this person said she loves doing this process because often she'll get to the end of the week and feel like she hasn't done all the things that she had on her to-do list and be feeling kind of down on herself, like she's not making any progress. And then once she answers these questions, she feels more connected to her dream, but also she realizes that she is making progress. A lot of the times it's like we do take steps and then we discount them, and we focus on the steps we haven't taken instead of acknowledging the steps that we have taken. That just seems to be human nature, and it makes things harder than it needs to be. So it's that was something I was really glad to hear, because that was one of the hopes I had for these sheets. So you can download this sheet on the blog. I post it every Friday and encourage you to do this with me, because creative dreaming in a dystopia is really complex. Creative dreaming is always complex, but I wanted to do these Friday videos to share how I'm doing my weekly check-ins, because these are the kinds of practices that help us feel more stable. And that's something that came up. Did I talk about this last week? If not, it bears repeating. But it came up recently on a group coaching call about how creative dreaming is always about like stretching yourself a bit. So you're kind of being a little more brave and a little more authentic in how you're living your life, and how that can be kind of destabilizing. It can create fear and anxiety and self-doubt that you wouldn't have to deal with if you were like conforming better to what society is telling you to do, rather than listening to your heart about what you want to do. And so in that way, creative dreaming is kind of destabilizing, and so it's easier to do when your world feels stable. And so the people with the most stable lives do have the easiest time creative dreaming, and sometimes those people are so visible with their dreams that everyone else judges their progress against theirs, and it's really not a fair comparison. But now that as the world is not really stable for anyone, we're all like in this of how do we do the work of like facing our fears and being our most authentic selves, even when the ground beneath us doesn't feel stable. And these weekly check-ins are one of the things. So last week, my focus had been, like for this week, be devoted, not disciplined. So it's kind of really speaking to a shift in my inner relationship with my life and my approach, like how I'm approaching the things that I want to create in my life. And I have been a very disciplined person, and tend to be like lots of routines, and I was really feeling into how like just being really devoted, not just to accomplishing my dreams. I feel like, especially the state of the world the last few years, it's like I don't really feel like accomplishing great things is meaningful. But what does feel really meaningful is listening to myself about how I want to live my life, like really, and thinking more in a broader spiritual sense about the gift that we've been given, and being grateful for the experience of life, and what do we want to do with this time that we have here. That's really where my creative dreams are leading me. So that's what that spoke to. Like, I really want to be devoted to just being my most authentic self, and to responding to the things happening in the world in the ways that feel true to me. And that is like being the change you want to see is always a part of that, right? This week, I had the same experience as that person that I mentioned who left that comment, where I have some things in my to-do list that didn't get done. And I'm recording this on Thursday, so I could still do them on Friday, but it's quite a few to-dos undone. And I was feeling like, oh, how did I not get to that? But then when I looked at what happened this week and what am I learning, it was like, whoa, I'm actually learning a lot about how I want to shift my approach to the to-dos. And so, yeah, I didn't do them because they're not just the outer thing, right? I'm just going to get our Creative Dream Alchemy Compass out. So it speaks to how the inner work, the dream work, and the outer work come together to create changes, and that generally we focus on the outer work and we want the outer change, and it's like we're not really understanding that that rests on the shoulders of the dream work and the inner work. And the same is true of everything. Like they all work together and we move back and forth between them, and they support each other. So when I'm saying that I had to-do lists that were very like outer work focused and I didn't do them, and now I'm like, why didn't I do them? I had the time. Actually, and they're fairly simple steps, but I was really in the inner work of it and the dream work, and that I actually here is where I need to be. Because making a dream real isn't just about making change in your life or like creating something. It is about the growth and the healing that comes along the way, and really being your most authentic self. And there's work to be done there around understanding who that version of you is, because from the moment we are born, we are kind of indoctrinated into cultural beliefs. And the culture we live in, most of us watching this, these cultures kind of suck, do not support everyone being their most authentic self. So I watched a documentary a few weeks ago called Singing Home the Buffalo, maybe a month ago by now, but it's a beautiful documentary about Indigenous groups in Canada and the US bringing buffalo back in different places in both of our countries. And one of the things I talked about is that the impact that the buffalo have. Like, I think there's been a lot of documentaries similar ways about nature, how like you take one piece out of the ecosystem, everyone misses it, right? Like everyone is needed, all the parts are needed. So bringing the buffalo back has all of these beautiful effects on the environment itself and the other animals and living things in it. But it was much more profound than that as well. And there was a lot about how the buffaloes being allowed to be their authentic selves and live their authentic life helps the humans to be their authentic self. And that's something I'm really noticing in my life, how, not just in my life, but in my work, one of the big things I feel like I've learned is how our culture doesn't support us in being our authentic selves. You know, capitalism doesn't help you be your authentic self. And there's this constant drive we seem to have, humans and other living things, right? We want to be our authentic self, which feels like a part of our purpose for being here. So our dreams are always, that's always one of the threads. This dream work is how is this dream helping to lead me back to myself? Probably no one dream is the whole thing, but it's parts. It's like bringing you back to parts of your authentic self. So this week, while I was not doing my to-dos, I actually was pretty deep in this around who's the version of me I need to be to do these things in the way I want to do them. Because I don't just want to do them the simplest way or the fastest way. Who is the version of me who can do these things the way I want to do them, and what does that version of me need? And how do I set things up to help me be that version of me? You know, creative dreaming is extremely non-linear. And one thing I think we all need to stop judging ourselves so much for not making the linear progress that we wish we were making, and to recognize that we're in this really rich process of exploration and discovery and creativity and healing and growth. And I think we're all doing great because we're still showing up. So thank you for being here. I'll see you next week.